The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, each drop like a tiny fist demanding entry. Elena Grant stood motionless in the living room she had decorated with such care. 3 years ago, staring at the email open on her laptop screen. The words blurred through her tears, but she had already memorized every cruel detail. My darling Sarah, last night was incredible. I can't wait until we can finally be together without all this sneaking around. Elena suspects nothing. She's too busy playing house to notice what's right in front of her. Just a few more months and the divorce will be finalized on my terms. Then we can have everything we've planned. The message was from Ethan to Sarah Mitchell, her former best friend, her business partner at the art gallery they had built together. The same Sarah who had held Elena's hand through panic attacks, who had encouraged her to leave her photography behind to support her husband's vision. The same Sarah who had slowly, methodically, helped Ethan isolate Elena from everyone else who might have seen what was happening. Elena's hands trembled as she scrolled through months of messages. The affair had been going on for over a year, but the manipulation had been orchestrated much longer. They had planned it all, the gradual erosion of her confidence, the subtle criticisms that made her question her own reality, the way they had slowly stolen her gallery from under her nose. Elena, what are you doing up so late? Ethan's voice cut through the storm outside. Smooth and controlled as always, she turned to see him in the doorway, still wearing his $1,000 suit from whatever business dinner had actually been. Another night with Sarah. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his smile the same charming one that had swept her off her feet 8 years ago when she was young and stupid and believed that love was supposed to make you feel small. I know, she said simply. His smile faltered for just a moment before reassembling itself. Know what, sweetheart, you seem upset. Maybe you should take one of your pills, and I know about Sarah. The words fell between them like stones. Ethan's face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, calculation, then that familiar mask of concerned husband. Elena, I think you're having another episode. You know how you get when you're stressed. Why don't we call Dr. Morrison in the morning and stop? The word came out stronger than she had spoken in years. Just stop. I read the emails, Ethan. All of them. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain against glass. Then Ethan's mask slipped entirely, revealing something cold and predatory underneath. So what if you did? His voice was different now, stripped of false warmth. What are you going to do about it? Leave. He laughed, a sound like breaking glass. With what money? What friends? What career? You have nothing without me, Elena. You are nothing without me. I made you into something, and I can unmake you just as easily. The words should have shattered her. 6 months ago, they would have. But something had shifted in the moment she'd seen the truth spelled out in those emails. The fog that had surrounded her for years began to clear, and she saw him, really saw him for the first time in forever. You're right, she said quietly. I don't have money or friends or a career. You made sure of that. She walked to the bedroom, pulled out her old camera bag from the back of the closet, the one he had convinced her to put away because it was cluttering up their aesthetic. Inside was her father's old Nikon, the one she had learned on, the one that had once felt like an extension of her soul. I'm taking this, she said, shouldering the bag, and I'm leaving. Elena, be reasonable. Where could you possibly go? She looked at him one last time, memorizing this moment, not his face, but the feeling of finally saying no to him. Somewhere you can't follow. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and for the first time in years, Elena Grant walked into the rain as herself. The bus ride to Millbrook took 6 hours through winding mountain roads that Elena had forgotten existed. She pressed her forehead against the cool window, watching familiar landscapes unfold like pages from a photo album she had locked away. The small town hadn't changed much, the same weathered buildings, the same tree-lined streets, the same sense of time moving more slowly here than in the city. She had paid cash for her ticket, turned off her phone, and withdrawn what little money she could from their joint account before Ethan thought to freeze it. It wasn't much, but it was enough to buy her some time to think, to figure out what came next. The motel on the edge of town was clean and cheap, nothing like the luxury she had grown accustomed to, but it felt honest in a way that surprised her. On her second day, She found herself walking through downtown with her camera hanging around her neck. She hadn't taken a picture in 4 years. Ethan had convinced her that her photography was a hobby, not a career, and that she should focus on supporting his business instead. But holding the familiar weight of the Nikon felt like greeting an old friend. The town square looked exactly as she remembered from high school, the same bronze statue of some long-dead founder, the same bench where she used to sit and read, the same small shops that had somehow survived the onslaught of big box stores. But there was something new, a cozy bookstore cafe where Peterson's Hardware used to be, with warm light spilling from its windows and the rich scent of coffee drifting onto the sidewalk. Rivers and Books and Coffee, read the hand-painted sign above the door. Elena almost kept walking. She wasn't ready to face people yet, wasn't ready for questions about where she'd been or why she'd come back. But something about the gentle warmth emanating from the windows drew her forward. Through the glass, she could see shelves lined with well-worn books, mismatched chairs clustered around small tables, and walls covered with local artwork. The bell above the door chimed softly as she entered, and a voice called from behind the counter, "I'll be right with you, just finishing up this espresso." Elena froze. She knew that voice, even after all these years, deep and warm, with the slight rasp that came from too many late nights talking about everything and nothing. She turned slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. Liam Rivera looked up from the espresso machine, and time seemed to stop. He was older. Of course, the boy she had known at 18 was now 35, with laugh lines around his dark eyes and silver threading through his black hair. But his smile was exactly the same, the one that had always made her feel like she was the only person in the world worth looking at. Elena. Her name fell from his lips like a prayer, soft and wondering. "Hi, Liam." Her voice came out smaller than she intended. They stared at each other across 17 years and 1,000 unspoken words. She waited for the questions, the accusations, the hurt that she had no right to expect him not to feel. Instead, he simply said, "Coffee? I remember you used to like it with too much sugar and a ridiculous amount of cream." The laugh that escaped her was half sob. "You remember that? I remember everything about you." He made her coffee exactly the way she used to drink it, and she settled into a corner table while he finished with his other customers. The bookstore was busier than she had expected for a Tuesday afternoon. Locals catching up over lattes, a few tourists browsing the local history section, an elderly man reading in the poetry corner with a sleeping cat on his lap. When the afternoon rush died down, Liam joined her at her table, carrying 2 cups and a plate of homemade cookies. "So," he said, settling into the chair across from her, "it's been a while, 17 years. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "I'm sorry I should have called or written or Elena." His voice was gentle. "You don't owe me apologies. You had a life to live. We both did." She looked down at her coffee, unable to meet his eyes. "What kind of life did you build? Are you married? Kids?" "No," he said simply, "neither. I tried dating a few times, but..." He shrugged. "This place has my heart. The bookstore, I mean. I bought it 3 years ago when old Peterson wanted to retire. It's not much, but it's mine. It's beautiful." And it was every corner spoke of love and care, from the carefully curated book selection to the local art on the walls. "You always said you wanted to own a bookstore. You remember that?" "I remember everything about you too." The admission hung between them, heavy with possibility and regret. Liam reached across the table and gently touched her left hand, where her wedding ring had left a pale band on her finger. "What happened, Elena?" The question was asked so softly, with such tenderness, that the walls she had built around the truth began to crumble. And for the first time in years, Elena Grant began to tell someone the story of how she had lost herself. 3 weeks later, Elena had fallen into a rhythm that felt both foreign and familiar. She would wake in her small motel room as the sun crested the mountains, walk to River's End for coffee and conversation with Liam, then spend her days exploring Millbrook with her camera. At first, she had only pretended to take pictures, holding the Nikon like a security blanket. But gradually, almost without her conscious permission, she began to see again the way morning light fell across the weathered brick of the old courthouse, the gnarled hands of Mrs. Patterson tending her prize-winning roses, the joy in a child's face as she discovered a perfect skipping stone by the creek. Each image was a small reclamation, a piece of herself she had thought lost forever. Liam never pushed her to talk about Ethan or her marriage, but he listened when she was ready. He had a way of drawing stories from her without making her feel exposed, asking about her photography, her dreams, the person she had been before she learned to make herself smaller. In return, he shared pieces of his own journey, the years he had spent traveling after college, working at bookstores in Portland and San Francisco before realizing that home was where he wanted to put down roots. "I kept thinking you might come back someday," he admitted one afternoon as they walked along Miller's Creek, the same path they had explored as teenagers. Stupid, right? But every time the bell above the door chimed, part of me hoped it might be you. Elena stopped walking, overwhelmed by the weight of his faithfulness. "Liam, I can't. I'm not ready for." "I know." He turned to face her, his eyes serious. "I'm not asking for anything, Elena. I'm just glad you're here now, in whatever way you can be." That evening, she found herself in his bookstore after closing time, helping him straighten shelves and prepare the register for the next day. The space felt sacred in the golden hour light, dust motes dancing between the book stacks like tiny spirits. "Can I show you something?" Liam asked, leading her toward a section of the wall she hadn't noticed before. It was a small gallery space, featuring the work of local artists, but in the center, matted and framed with obvious care, hung a photograph she recognized with a shock that took her breath away. It was one of hers, a black and white image of Liam from their senior year, taken when he wasn't looking. He was sitting by Miller's Creek, reading, completely absorbed in his book. The composition captured something ineffable about him, his quiet intensity, his connection to the world around him, the way he seemed to carry peace within himself. "I've had this for 17 years, he said quietly. "You gave it to me right before graduation. Remember, you said it was the best picture you'd ever taken." Elena stared at the photograph, remembering the girl who had snapped that image. She had been so sure of herself then, so confident in her ability to see beauty and capture it. That girl had believed she could do anything. "I entered it in a regional photography competition last month," Liam continued. "I hope you don't mind. It won second place." "You what?" Elena whipped around to stare at him. "People should see your work, Elena. It's too good to stay hidden. That was taken 17 years ago. I'm not that photographer anymore, aren't you?" He moved to stand beside her, both of them looking at the image, because the woman who took this picture, she saw things that mattered. She had something to say, and I don't think that ever really goes away. That night, Elena sat on her motel bed with her laptop open, scrolling through the few digital images she had managed to take over the past weeks. They were tentative, uncertain, but there was something in them, a spark she had thought extinguished. She found herself uploading them to a folder, organizing them, seeing patterns and possibilities she hadn't noticed before. Her phone, which she had kept turned off for weeks, buzzed with a notification. Ethan had been calling and texting constantly, his messages alternating between rage and manipulation, threats and promises. But tonight there was something different, a message from a number she didn't recognize. "This is James Morrison from Pacific Northwest Photography Magazine. We saw your photograph reader by the creek in the Millbrook Arts competition and would love to discuss featuring your work in our upcoming issue on emerging Pacific Northwest photographers. Please call at your earliest convenience." Elena stared at the message, reading it 3 times before the words fully registered. Someone wanted to feature her work. Someone thought she was an emerging photographer worth noting. She looked at her reflection in the dark motel window, really looked at herself. For the first time in years, the woman staring back was thinner than she used to be, marked by stress and sorrow, but there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there in Seattle. A spark of recognition, a glimpse of the person she used to be. Maybe, she thought, the person she could be again. Outside her window, Millbrook slept peacefully under a canopy of stars, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Elena Grant fell asleep thinking about tomorrow instead of running from yesterday. The call came on a Thursday morning while Elena was helping Liam rearrange the poetry section. Her phone, which she had finally started keeping on again, buzzed insistently against the wooden counter. Elena, thank God. Ethan's voice was different, not the cold manipulation of their last encounter, but the charming tone he had used when they first met. I've been worried sick. Where are you? I've hired investigators. I've called hospitals. I'm fine, Ethan. She moved toward the back of the store, away from curious ears. Fine? You disappeared in the middle of the night without a word. That's not fine. That's a breakdown. Look, I know you saw those emails, and I know you're upset, but you're not thinking clearly. Sarah meant nothing. It was just stress relief. You know how demanding my work is. Elena found herself marveling at his audacity. Even now, caught in his lies, he was trying to make her doubt her own reality. Come home, he continued when she didn't respond. I'll end things with Sarah. We'll go to counseling, and everything will go back to the way it was. I've already spoken to Dr. Morrison about adjusting your medication. No. The word came out clear and strong. No, Elena, be reasonable. You can't just run away from your problems. You have responsibilities, commitments. Our life was never our life, she interrupted. It was your life, and I was just furniture. Something pretty to arrange however you wanted. That's not true. I love you. I've always loved you. For a moment, Elena felt the old pull of his words. There had been good times, hadn't there? Moments when she had felt cherished, protected. But then she remembered the emails, the systematic way he had isolated her, the way he had made her feel crazy for trusting her own instincts. If you loved me, she said quietly, you would have wanted me to be happy. You would have encouraged my photography, my friendships, my dreams. Instead, you spent 8 years convincing me that I was nothing without you. Elena, please, just come home and we can work this out. I'll do anything. I am home. She realized as she said it. For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I need to be. She hung up and turned off her phone, hands shaking slightly. Through the bookstore window, she could see Liam pretending to read while obviously waiting to make sure she was okay. The sight of him patient, steady, giving her space to handle her own battles nearly broke her heart with gratitude. 2 hours later, a black sedan pulled up outside Rivers End Books and Coffee. Ethan emerged wearing his most expensive suit and his most dangerous smile. Elena watched through the window as he surveyed the small town with obvious disdain, straightening his tie before pushing through the door. So this is where you've been hiding. His voice carried across the suddenly quiet bookstore. It's quaint. Several customers looked up from their books, sensing drama. Liam emerged from behind the counter, moving to stand protectively near Elena without quite positioning himself between them. Hello, Ethan, Elena said calmly. Elena, darling. He moved toward her with open arms, as if expecting her to run into them when she didn't move. His expression flickered with something ugly before reassembling itself. I can see why you needed some time to think. This place is very peaceful, but surely you've had enough time now to come to your senses. I have, she said. That's why I won't be coming back. Ethan's gaze shifted to Liam, taking in his worn jeans and flannel shirt, the calluses on his hands from honest work. I see. So this is about him. His voice dripped with contempt. You're throwing away 8 years of marriage, a beautiful home, financial security. For what? A small-town nobody who runs a failing bookstore. This is about me, Elena said firmly. This is about choosing to be someone I can respect. Respect, Ethan laughed. The sound sharp and bitter. Elena, let's be honest about what this is. You're having a midlife crisis, acting out because you're scared of growing up and taking responsibility. But this little fantasy, he gestured dismissively round the bookstore, isn't real life. Real life is what we built together. Real life is compromise and partnership, and a real life, Liam said quietly, speaking for the first time, is being with someone who sees your worth instead of spending years trying to convince you that you don't have any. Ethan's mask slipped completely. And you think you see her worth? You think you know her better than her own husband? She's broken, you know, fragile. She can't handle pressure, can't make decisions, can't even stop. Elena's voice cut through his words like a blade. Just stop. She looked at this man she had once promised to love forever and felt nothing but pity. He was smaller than she remembered, diminished by his own cruelty. You're right about one thing, she said. I was broken, but not because I'm fragile or weak or any of the other things you convinced me I was. I was broken because I let you break me, because I forgot who I was before I met you. She walked to the wall where her photograph hung, the image of 18-year-old Liam reading by the creek. That girl who had taken this picture, she had been fearless, creative, full of dreams and possibility. I'm not that scared woman anymore, Ethan. I remember who I am, and who is that? He sneered. A small-town photographer who peaked in high school, Elena smiled. And for the first time in years, it was genuine and unafraid. I'm Elena Grant. I take pictures that make people stop and really see the world. I have something to say, and I'm not going to whisper it anymore. She turned to face him fully. I'm divorcing you. My lawyer will be in touch. Ethan's face cycled through rage, disbelief, and finally, calculating coldness. You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back within 6 months, and when you do, I won't be waiting. Good, Elena said simply. After he left, the bookstore slowly returned to its peaceful rhythm. Customers went back to their reading. The afternoon light resumed its gentle dance through the windows, and the world kept turning. Liam approached her carefully, as if she might startle. Are you okay? Elena looked around the bookstore at the carefully tended books, the local art on the walls, the people who felt safe enough to lose themselves in stories here. She thought about the photograph competition, the magazine that wanted to feature her work, the tentative images she had been taking around town. I'm better than okay, she said. I'm free. 6 months later, the Pacific Northwest Photography magazine featured Elena's work in a 12-page spread, titled Rediscovering Light, A Photographer's Return. The exhibition opened at a gallery in Portland on a rainy Thursday evening, drawing art lovers from across the region. The photographs told a story of return and renewal, the weathered hands of elderly residents, children playing in Miller's Creek, the way light fell across the mountains at dawn. But the centerpiece was a new photograph, Liam in his bookstore, surrounded by towers of books, reading to a group of children during story time. He was completely absorbed in the tale he was telling, his face animated with joy and wonder. The caption read, "The One Who Waited." As the gallery crowd thinned, Elena found herself alone with that final photograph. She had taken it without him knowing, captured in that moment when he was most himself, generous, kind, wholly present. It's beautiful work. She turned to find Liam behind her, wearing the same slightly overwhelmed expression he had worn all evening as strangers praised her talent. Are you proud of me? She asked, suddenly needing to know. I've always been proud of you, he said simply, but I'm glad you're proud of yourself now too. Elena looked at her reflection in the gallery window, seeing not the broken woman who had fled Seattle, but someone strong and whole and ready for whatever came next. Liam, she said, turning back to him, I'm ready now, if you still are. He smiled, the same smile that had welcomed her home months ago, the same smile she had fallen in love with when they were both too young to know what love really meant. I've been ready for 17 years, he said. Outside, the rain had stopped, and Seattle sparkled in the distance like a city in someone else's dream. But Elena Grant was exactly where she belonged, with the man who had never stopped believing in the light she carried within herself. In the end, that was enough. It was everything.